It says that how
Yeah.
important is the risk of hypoglycemia while selecting a correct insulin?
Acha. See, while selecting insulin, the initial dose is very important. You cannot go at a very high dose which induces hypoglycemia, and a proper counseling is also needed with regards to the hypoglycemia before insulin initiation, and how hypoglycemia has to be detected by the patient, how it is to be countered properly by the patient. So the initial doses must not exceed, like in case of basal insulin you want to start, it should be like 10 units a day to start with, and every 2-3 days you keep increasing by 2 units, or another 3 days another 2 units, where the patient is very comfortable, will not get into hypoglycemia. If it is a biphasic premixed insulin, you start at the dose of 15 in the morning and 10 in the night, or 20 in the morning, 10 in the night. Slowly monitoring the dose, you start escalating the dose so that the patient doesn't get into hypoglycemia. And in between snacking is very important. The time of counseling, how to escape from the hypoglycemia while the patient is on insulin. So to start with low dose is always better. To start with low dose and go slow is the dictum, like 0.2 to 0.3 or zero point 0.4 max by max, 0.5 units per kilogram body weight in 24-hour divided dose will not let the patient get into hypoglycemia in my experience.
Thank you so much for that
And
answer.
one more thing I should add is, and the risk of hypoglycemia is seen more with the biphasic premixed human insulins when compared to the analog premixed insulins. It is much less, and with the aspart and the protamine aspart it is less, and it is much less with IDEC asp, that is insulin degludec and aspart combination. It is very rarely seen the hypoglycemia. So far, thousands of my patients who are on this particular combination, insulin, degludec and aspart, mostly the BD dosage, have never complained even a single element of hypoglycemia, unless otherwise the patient is on a secretagogue, that is the sulfonylurea secretagogue. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for the answer, sir. There are a couple of questions. Indeed, I can call it as a set of questions on the second topic,
Yeah.
on the devices. So they say that if you see the rural practitioner or primary care physicians, they usually initiate with the vials and syringes of Mixtide.
Yeah.
So in your practice, what are the safety parameters what are the advantages indeed you find with devices? If you can say that, sir, that would be great for all the audience.
Yeah, see, devices, they deliver the dose so accurately, at least for a period of, you say that it is 5 years. In my clinical scenario, I have seen the patients using it for 10 years and 15 years and 20 years also. So that delivers the accurate dosing, and very less of pain at the injection site, and no insulin reaction at the injection site, which makes more convenient for the patient, rather than using the vial. If the patient is not affordable, like he cannot afford to go for a the cartridge and the no pen 4, we are giving no pen 4 free of cost to each and every patient. Hundreds and thousands of patients of mine received no pen 4, and they are comfortable with the Mixtard 30 flex pens. Mixtard 30 the cartridges, and they are using it with most comfort and with less pain, and the accurate dose of those being delivered so accurately that they don't get into hypoglycemia. And the accurate dosing, like the magnifying lens, which is the improved lens, seen over the numbering of Nopen 4, makes even the elderly person who has got even the vision abnormalities also can, like, it is very easy to dial and very easy to redial. Suppose the patient is on 10 units, suppose he goes for 20 units, they can just dial back without wasting even a single unit of insulin, and it is very easy to fill the cartridge, very easy to take it out, very easy to fix the needle, very easy to dispose the needle, and everything becomes very easy, and you can carry the pen wherever you go, and it's very easy to administer also. The cumbersome procedure of unless otherwise the patient is so poor that he cannot afford to go for the pen fills, the cartridges. That's what. The only one condition I would prefer is the bottle insulin and the syringes all the time. And a non-affordable patient who is so poor so that he cannot afford to go for this cartridges. That's it. That is the only one barrier. Even in the rural settings also, and no people are providing all the NovoPen force and at free of cost to the practicing clinicians, and they can as well as hand over the benefit to their patients, pass on the benefit to their patients, and if they can counsel the patient how to use that NovoPen 4, I think that is the best on the earth. That all cartridges can fit into NovoPen 4, including even the latest, the Rhizodec or the Novomix. What I am not supposed to take out the brand names, but I am supposed to take out, because unless I say human mixture, some rural area clinicians may not recognize that it is biphasic premixed human regular insulin, and the combination of the NPH and the regular human insulin. So in that case, that is a different scenario. In this case, the flex pens are available and use and throw pens are available, and the greatest advantage of these devices and the pens, the flex touch pens have come for the latest ones, either the Tresiba or the Rhizodec. We have got the flexibility, and you don't need to use power at all. Even the person aged around 90 can happily take the injection with a very minimal pressure on that, and just one click it goes down. And I ask the patient always to hold for 30 seconds, so that the needle is so fine, the 31, 32 gauge needles, they let all the dose get into subcutaneous place of the abdomen.
Yeah, thank you so much for nicely discuss the benefits of devices compared to vials and syringes, sir. And there are a couple of questions on the current COVID scenario.
Yeah.
One of the doctors who was in the attendees, Dr. Radhishekar, is asking a question.
Yeah.
So my friend joined in hospital with COVID positive and having diabetes for the past 5 years. Now he is on instant bolus insulin. And do you suggest metformin along with insulin?
See, it depends on the condition. If the patient is not on the ventilators, if the patient is not on the mechanical ventilation, if the patient is on only oxygen, you can continue metformin along with insulin, because metformin has got a tremendous role in inhibiting the replication of the coronavirus. The SARS-CoV-2 replication is much suppressed by this particular metformin, and the role of insulin, as I have already emphasized, it is the end of the day you have to go for insulin in any acute hospitalization or acute settings, and especially with SARS-CoV-2 infection, the low pH is like, that is the reason why we don't encourage the air conditioners and all. The pH may go down on the every chance of the viral replication, and it all the time attacks the ACE2 receptors. So whereas our insulin is going to raise the pH level, so that the entry of the SARS-CoV-2 into the body through ACE receptors is being inhibited or being blocked. That's it.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir, for giving a logical view of using metformin during COVID time.
Yeah, in Wuhan, Praveen, they have been using metformin in non-diabetics also.
Okay.
Though they are not randomized controlled trials. Okay.
Okay, sir. So what should be the HbA1c goal in this pandemic? That is the one part of the question. The second part of the question is that due to excessive use of all kind of cocktail medications, how do we address the creatinine and cardiac parameters in COVID scenario?
Acha, see one wonderful question. And coming to the part one of the question, the ideal HbA1c is in between 6.5% to 7% is the most ideal, where there will be no morbidity and mortality. Though there is infection with SARS-CoV, that is the frank COVID-19 also, it will be only mild to moderate. It will not progress to the severe condition wherein he requires the admissions and all, where he is required to put on oxygen or in the mechanical ventilation or in the ICU setup. See, the ideal all the time is below 7 and 6.5, where the patient feels comfortable, and we should not allow the patient to get into hypoglycemia at the same time achieving a stringent control like 6.5 to 7. That is part 1. And part 2 is how to monitor all the cardiac and renal parameters in this the khichdi preparations we are using. That someone uses the azithromycin and some doctor writes doxycycline, and someone uses hydroxychloroquine and someone uses ivermectin, and some uses the favipiravir, and in the critically ill patients we are using remdesivir, and tacozumab is being used, and there is no rationale and there is no like what I say, any randomized control trial so far till today, till minute. There is no effective treatment for COVID-19, that SARS-CoV-2 infection per se. And before treating any patient, you need to have some baseline workup, like the baseline, the resting 12 lead ECG is mandatory. You should see that there should be no ischemic changes, the coronary artery disease, or the left bundle branch, or the electrical disturbances like right bundle branch block. If at all there is a prolonged QTC interval, that patient should never be put on as azithromycin or this particular hydroxychloroquine, which have the tendency to increase the QTC interval, which may lead to sudden ventricular and supraventricular arrhythmias, may lead to sudden cardiac death. So per se, the COVID-19, the SARS-CoV-2 has got a tendency to prolong the QTC interval. Not only the drug induced like azithromycin and the hydroxychloroquine, even this particular SARS-CoV has got a tendency to prolong the QTC interval. Thereby, it has got several fold of the cardiovascular manifestations, starting from acute myocardial infarction to acute heart failure to viral myocardial infarction to prolonged QTC interval, the ventricular arrhythmias and the supraventricular arrhythmias, and the sudden cardiac death. These are all the complications of the SARS-CoV-2 infection, and that may lead to, like, whenever you see the patient, you should take the baseline renal parameters. You should not go by the serum creatinine. All the time you should calculate the estimated glomerular filtration rate. You should not allow the patient his renal condition be deteriorated at any cost. So he should take care of the liver parameters, because it is going to attack the liver. What not? Except the hair and the nails, every part is involved. Like diabetes, SARS-CoV is another diabetes which involves each and every part of the body. So you have to take care of the all parameters. Like you should have the baseline liver enzymes. You should have the baseline resting 12 lead electrocardiogram. You should have the lipid profile done. You should have the 2D echo done. You should have the renal parameters done. All the parameters must be normal, and with all the preparations also, you should see to that the patient doesn't get into complications, either cardiovascular complications or the pulmonary complications. The many pulmonary complications are seen with this. And apart from all these, the disseminated intravascular coagulation, that is the thrombus, which is the cytokine storm, that is taking away so many lives. So the patient must be put on aspirin for at least a period of 1 month, low dose aspirin, that is, they say the recommendations 100 milligram. In India, it is 75 milligram. So we should have a comprehensive overall approach if you are treating a case of COVID-19 along with the comorbidities or without comorbidities. Or else, if you are not familiar with that, please don't venture to treat COVID-19. Send them to a specialist. Then the patient will be safe, and you will also be safe.
Thank you so much, sir. Perhaps this could be the best answer for this question, I feel. And the next set of question on the initiation part, sir.
Yeah.
So they ask that when to initiate an insulin, and can you suggest the safest insulins? Nowadays we have many insulins available in the market.
Yeah. See, the time to initiate is earlier the better. That is, the funda of treating diabetes has changed drastically over the last decade actually. See, earlier, in my 3 decades of experience, initial period they used to all the time say, start low, go slow, start low, go slow, start low, go slow. Start with 250 milligram of the metformin, go to 500 milligram after 15 days, again 1 month, morning 500, evening 500, and by the time it takes, it's a lengthy, laborious time is wasted. And now the latest funda of treating diabetes is hit early, hit hard, strike early, strike hard. That is, with dual agent you have to counter to start with. If the patient's A1C is somewhere around 7 to 8, you better start the patient with metformin and sulfonylurea, preferably the glycoside or the glimepiride. And if the patient is not well controlled, if the patient if you can counsel the patient, it all depends on the way you counsel the patient, how you motivate the patient towards insulin, and what are the advantages of insulin. If you can stress upon this, if you can get an impression, that's a right impression. That's what I mean to say. It's not convincing the patient in a wrong way that you don't threaten the patient that if you are not insulin, you are going to die. That is not the way a clinician should respond. No, it's a, see, after all, my definition of treatment is it's a gentleman's agreement between the patient and the doctor is called treatment. So when it is time to add insulin is at the time when 2 agents are not able to get back to the normalcy, it's high time at least you have to start with a basal insulin. And you can try, the patient is so resistant, and one single injection 10 units at the bedtime, and we have got the best basal ultra long analog, that is insulin degludec to start with, which has got a 24-hour control, wonderful control along with the metformin and sulfonylurea. And if the patient is not controlled with that 10 units, you can escalate every 2 days or 3 days. You monitor the blood glucose levels, you increase the levels to 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, and so that the patients, you keep monitoring the fasting blood glucose and the 2-hour postprandial blood glucose. And if the patient is doing okay, then you stay with that. If the patient is not okay, you switch over to biphasic premix insulin. Whether the patient is not an affordable segment, you go for the human mixed. And if the patient is an affordable segment, you can either go for Novomix, or the best is the Rhizodec. You can go for either the insulin degludec aspart or the plain aspart with the protaminized aspart. These are all the safest combinations we have. And many ways of treating, it all depends on the pulse of the patient and the condition of the patient and the A1C of the patient and the response of the patient and the multiple comorbidities associated with diabetes, like hypertension, like diabetic kidney disease, like the complications like retinopathy or the neuropathy or the atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, hypertension, dyslipidemia, associated hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism. These are all the various factors we have to take into account before convincing the patient to be on insulin. On a safer side, the A1C must be targeted around 7 or below 7. Preferably, my A1C goal is 6.5 to 7% without letting the patient into hypoglycemia.
Thank you so much for your answers, sir. Those are the last set of questions we have brought. And before we wind up, I have brought one question from our end, sir.
Yeah.
I would like to know about your response. Yes.
Yeah, Praveen.
There are many biosimilars available, sir, even for Mixtard as well. And that in the rural sectors, a lot of biosimilars are selling out. So what is your expert opinion in using biosimilars, especially in insulin segment? Is it safe, or what do you feel?
Absolutely 100% not safe. The original is original, the biosimilar is biosimilar. My take on this is very clear. I would rather go for the original product. 24 karat gold is 24 karat gold, 16 karat gold is 16 karat gold. It doesn't mean that okay, both are same. Biosimilars, I say it is 12 karat gold, whereas the original human mixture is 24 karat gold. Diamond is diamond, gold is gold, silver is silver, copper is copper, bronze is bronze. I never advise patients to go for biosimilars. That is absolutely not advisable. I always because there is no molecule which is available at a cheaper price like human mixtard or human actrapid or human insulatard at 1 rupee, 150 rupees. When see you don't get even 1 kilo of chicken also. Sometimes you don't get onions 1 kilo also for one single vial of human mixtard. What more extra benefit do you want in going for the imitations? Do you like that? Okay, I don't like going for imitations. Okay. I want the safety of my patient is my utmost importance. The utmost my concern is my patient's safety, and not letting him down at any point of time is my utmost responsibility, Praveen. So I bluntly say no biosimilars, please.
Thank you so much for re-emphasizing the benefits, re-emphasizing the importance of original, sir.
Yeah, original is always original. All that glitters is not gold, Praveen. Biosimilars, maybe they are glittering, but you cannot take it for granted that is gold. 24 karat gold is different. The duplicates are different. I don't say duplicates. Biosimilars are always next to the originals only. They can never be the originals.
Nicely phrased.
They are something like a stuntman in the cinema field. That's it.
Yeah, one last question before we leave on
Yeah, any amount of questions. Please.
Yeah, in present COVID-19 scenario, what another test a routine diabetes practice to add on?
Is it related to diabetes or you want the COVID also?
In COVID scenario, is there any other routine diabetes checkup need to be done? So that's what the question.
See, apart from the gold standard, the fasting, the 2-hour post lunch, and the HbA1c, and the lipid profile, and the baseline ECG, and the serum electrolytes, and the renal parameters, renal function test, and the thyroid function test, and the liver function test, and these are mandatory, and complete urine examination with a CBP, that is complete blood picture. That's all is sufficient. In COVID scenario also nothing else is more important. And in the COVID scenario, you want to rule out COVID, you ask the patient to go for never ask the patient to go for rapid antibody testing, that is IgG and IgM. Ask the patient to go for RT-PCR COVID, that is reverse transcription polymerase chain reaction, and if it becomes positive, you rule out the pulmonary manifestations by just ordering one CT chest or thorax, where you find the typical round glass appearance, you find the CORAD score, and if it is confirmed, then you go for this is for diagnostic purpose and the treatment purpose. And the prognostic purpose, there are many tests, that is starting from the D-dimers and the ferritin and the interleukin 6, which is the most important one. They have to be looked for. Even the platelets, they have to be looked for in the prognostic angle only, not for the diagnostic angle. Diagnosis is always made by RT-PCR. That is also not 100% sensitivity and 100% specificity. It is only 60 to 65% of the patients, they have positive RT-PCR. Even though the 100 patients have the virus in the body, it gives as 30 to 35% as negative RT-PCR. The negative RT-PCR doesn't rule out the presence of COVID-19. Likewise, even the IgG G and IgM antibody rapid testing kit also, because at some point of time the IgG rises, at some point of time the IgM rises. So you cannot rule out if it is rapid test done. If it is negative, it has to be corroborated after 72 hours. Again, after 72 hours, again 3 negative tests, like what we do in malaria. You have to take 3 different smears and different timings to rule out malaria. One single the thin slide or thick slide of this malarial parasite doesn't rule out the possibility of malaria. Likewise, one single test of antibody rapid testing doesn't rule out the presence of COVID. If you do consecutive 3 days, 3 different scenarios, if it is negative, then you can take it as negative, and if it is positive, you cannot take it for granted that it is positive. It has again to be reconfirmed by RT-PCR. Then only you can diagnose the case of SARS-CoV-2 or the COVID-19, Praveen.
Thank you so much for the elaborated response on COVID, sir. Indeed, it is pleasure to have you as a speaker this evening, sir. And more than 50 participants who have participated in line has got immense benefit out of your talks, sir. Thank you so much for being with us.
It's my pleasure always, Praveen. Thank you, Praveen, and
Any closing remarks now by Murli sir?
so far I've never seen such a nice coordinator like Praveen. I'm proud to say that Praveen is awarded from Sepuri's side the best coordinator.
You moderated very well, sir, the entire session, question answer session particularly.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I sincerely thank, my sincere thanks to you.
Is it Murli?
Yes,
Excellent
Murli, sir.
lecture.
Is it
Yeah,
Murli?
sir.
Yeah. Nice to see you, Murli.
Yes, sir, yes.
Yeah, nice to see Satish.
Yes, sir. Yeah, thank you very much, sir. And it is my pleasure to have you this evening as a speaker, sir. You have given an excellent elaboration about the particular role of insulin in diabetes, particularly under this challenging situation of the COVID.
Yeah, COVID pandemic. Yes, absolutely,
and
yes.
also in a normal situation, also what is the importance of the insulin, and also you have answered most of the really good questions which has come from the audience.
Yeah, that shows the audience response is so good that they are listening to me and they are able to forward the questions. Means I must be thankful to the patient listening by the participants, by the my fellow professional colleagues. I am highly thankful to all the doctors who have participated in this seminar and the webinar, the virtual meeting. And any question from your side is most welcome. I am happy to take the questions.
Yes, sir. In spite of the virtual webinar, sir, they went as a face-to-face because of you. It is really great, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Murli.
Answered to their satisfaction, sir. So it's really great, and I thank each and one, everyone who has participated, all the doctors. My sincere thanks on
Yeah.
behalf of Novo Nordisk for participating in this webinar, and also I thank you, sir, for your valuable time and also spending your sharing your knowledge in this.
It's my pleasure, Murli. All the time, it's my pleasure.